Yes, and thanks to Robin's groundbreaking technology, we are now able to scan large area forestry and to have a better understanding across the dynamics of the forest and a better understanding of the genetic by environments, by silviculture interactions. So what we can do across a large-scale area is to understand the variabilities of these factors. What are the variabilities of the genetic and what the importance of the factor across large estates. We have been working with the kangaroo forest, and technically we have been using a grid of 25 by 25 meters square to understand this interaction across large estate and large variability. Large variability means we have a lot of different seedlots across the estates planted from south to west, but also for the environments, we can see real impacts from south to north in terms of temperature. So we can see the influence on the temperature on different type of seedlots across the whole estates. But not only that, based on the LiDAR and the UAV, we have also information about the topology of the terrain. How does the elevation influence the growth of the tree, and how the elevation influence the growth of the tree with a certain genotype. Across the data set, we have information regarding the climates, temperature, rainfall, sun, number of hours of sun per day. We have information on the management, so how long has it been since the last thinning, the last pruning, what are the soil information, the New Zealand soil classification for this stand, the type of disease and wind. In that case, it has been a spatial study, so the temporal information are not so relevant. Thanks to the LiDAR, we have the digital terrain model. So again, the elevation, the valley, but also the trees information, like the height of the tree, the dBH, and we can correlate all of that with field measurements taken by actual people going into the field. In total, it's been 62 different variables which have been included in the model for 2.78 million observations, 10 pixels. So more than 170 million observation values to be processed at the same time. That's definitely not something a human can do, or even finding correlation between those values. So we are using machine learning approach, an analytics module. And how does that work? Simply, you have an observation that you can measure. So it can be the site index, but it can be a value per dollar. It can be the volume. It can be the 300 index. You need to be able to observe this observation. But you also need other data, such as climate, management, LiDAR area, genetics. And the more you have, the better to understand what's happening. You put that into a machine learning model. In that case, I use the categorical boosting, or CAT boost. And it creates some decision tree, so an actual information about what are the decisions made by the machine to decide which features are important. What are the thresholds of the temperature deciding what are the growth of your tree, the site index of your tree. Based on this really good analytic module, you are actually able to extract the feature of importance. So what are the key drivers of productivity across your forest, but also to be able to do prediction and estimation on new data or incomplete data across your forest. So as an example, if you look at the score across the forest, then you can see that the genetics is one of the most important factors. The genetic influence the growth across the whole forest on average the best. But the top 5 are actually also environmental, like the spring temperature, the elevation, so the topography of your terrain, and you also have the soil name, so the New Zealand soil classification as a top 5. So you have this interaction of G by E by S happening, and we can show that. So that's the average across the forest, but what would be the influence of the elevation for some of the trees? So you can only look at the elevation, and what you can see is the high value of elevation have actually a low impact on the growth, a negative impact on the growth, while a lowest elevation have a positive impact, a better growth for the tree. And you can do that for each of your stand, for each of your 25 by 25 meter, and understand better of this importance of features, not only across the forest on average, but for each of the point. It's a bit hard for a human to understand as a large scale with the previous scheme. So what you can do is actually create maps across the whole kangaroo forest. And plot your features of importance. So the spring temperature was number 2, and we can look at the spring temperature across the forest, and we see this gradient of temperature from low to average between the south to the north. The map on the left-hand side is the original data set, and as you can see, it's rather incomplete, either because it was other species or because the measurements themselves were a bit too dangerous to go into. So what you can do on that is to predict what will be happening if we plant now radiata in these areas, or if we were actually able to do better measurements in this area, because the model is able to predict this information. So you can see what will be happening in your forest. And you can also see the influence of some of the genetic information or other of your variables across the forest. If I replace all my seed lots by the seed lot code 104, then the productivity on average increase. And you can see that the yellow at the south are now becoming a bit greener. So we can do that. Of course, these observations are only based on what have been measured across the forest. So typically, I guess there was no 104 in this area, but so the impact is bigger. But you can technically choose which are the best across your stand and try them again on the next selection. So instead of planting 20 new seed lots, you can now choose what are the best top 5 across your stand and try these top 5. And if one is better in another stand, maybe you want to try it on this new stand now. So that's selecting for the next rotation what will be the important genotype. You can have measurement, actual measurement of your productivity, and see that, again, if I replace by 104, what would be my mean improvements, my mean growth in terms of site and depth? In that case, it's almost 2 meter high. So you can see the number of hectares which are improved and the percentage of the forest which is also improved by this method. So the phenotyping stand-based area is able to estimate this missing value that you can't really measure across the forest, and also to select the superior genotype across the forest. But also, not only the superior, what you might be interested in is not only to understand why this one performed really well, but actually why those one are performing poorly. Maybe you can improve them as well and try to have a better stand across your whole estate. It also allows you to look at this exceptional stand as a group of exceptional tree. But for that, you will need to get a bit deeper into the information to zoom across your forest and to be able to go through individual tree characterization.